Welcome to today's Explainer. We're opening up a wildly extraordinary case file right off the bat here. We're stepping into a clinical briefing that literally dissects the death of clichés to, well, explain the impossible diseases of the human heart. We'll be looking at source material compiled across 17 authenticated timelines. Yep, 17. We're basically autopsying what happens when metaphors die because language just completely fails to capture true trauma or grief or, love.
So, think of our agenda today as a medical chart. We've got 1. The morgue of dead metaphors, 2. Diagnosing narrative inception, 3. Timeline displacement disorder, 4. The pharmacy of remedies, and finally, 5. The terror of stability.
All right, let's start with section 1, the morgue of dead metaphors.
Let's dive right into a phrase we've all used, probably a million times: butterflies in my stomach. The authors use this incredible medical autopsy framework to show us what happens when this cliché becomes terrifyingly real. Imagine a patient, let's call her Lena Solari, experiencing the absolute chaos of new love. It's not just a nervous feeling. It's an acute metaphorical condition where the very idea of butterflies violently attempts to literalize. They literally want to burst out of the body to prove they're real. The metaphor simply cannot contain the sheer weight of the emotion, so the metaphor dies. And just look at the physical evidence recovered in this metaphorical autopsy. The stomach contents? Get this: 7 monarchs, which represent hope, 14 moths for doubt, 1 sphinx moth, acting as the unasked question, and then 600 unidentified species representing all those nameless fears and desires. It's just a stunning forensic breakdown of how the violence of new love completely consumes you from the inside out.
Moving on to section 2. Diagnosing narrative inception.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the diagnosis of narrative inception syndrome, or NIS. This is a chronic condition where someone becomes meta-aware. They realize they're just a character serving a narrative function. And the clinical presentation? Absolutely catastrophic. I mean, the human soul just isn't designed to operate on multiple narrative levels at once. When a character realizes they're just a metaphor or a plot device, the load-bearing meanings of their soul literally collapse under the crushing weight of audience expectations.
Which brings us to Elias Void, our primary patient. His situation perfectly captures the total gut-punch reality of experiencing your own life as an edited, noir-tinged tragedy. He actually says, either I'm insane or I'm a character in something with really heavy-handed symbolism. I'm not sure which is worse. Elias is suffering from the terrifying realization that his deepest, most profound suffering might just be a plot point. Ouch, right? And this realization builds into recognition syndrome, which is actually treated as a highly contagious disease between Elias and Lena. It completely bypasses normal human attraction. It kicks off with visual contact, boom, followed by an instant systemic response. Then you get temporal vertigo, which is basically the collapsing of past, present, and future, leading right into a certainty without evidence that this specific person is significant. Finally, reality distortion kicks in, where probability itself warps just to force them together. Their multiversal love is literally treated by the cosmos as an infectious disease.
Let's turn to section 3, Timeline Displacement Disorder. This brings us to our most severe case study. Timeline Displacement Disorder is a quantum pathology. When Elias loses Lena in their original timeline, his grief is so absolute, so heavy, that his consciousness actually fragments. He just completely refuses linear time. Instead, he starts searching laterally for her across alternate realities. He ends up maintaining a connection with way too many reality branches at once, effectively bleeding chronology. Following Elias on these jumps, we can track him frantically leaping from timeline prime 47, where the original death occurs, over to timeline 7, where they just break up, then to timeline 15, which ends in sickness, all the way to timeline prime current. He is literally collecting different versions of Lena from different branches. From a clinical standpoint, trying to build a composite of your lost love from fragments across realities is psychologically indistinguishable from sheer madness. As Dr. Jemmers, the chief ontological coroner, clinically points out, this sounds like freedom. It is actually a very specific kind of drowning. It's a devastating paradox. Having infinite possibilities across a multiverse doesn't actually cure the loss of your original timeline. You just end up haunting your own alternative presence. Next up, section 4, the pharmacy of remedies. Let's look at the psychological trade-offs of the tincture of selective forgetting. This is a remedy that completely severs the emotional charge of a memory.
Before taking it, the memory is a raw wound, like the rain smells like copper and endings. After the tincture, the memory is just a cold, hard fact. It was raining, she died. The pharmacy notes make it brutally clear here. Removing the emotional charge of a core memory effectively kills your original self. You become a completely different person, one who just doesn't love that much anymore.
Then we have the tincture of dramatic irony, which, frankly, directly implicates us as the audience. For characters, it is strictly contraindicated. Knowing what the audience knows causes profound psychological damage and, apparently, excessive monologuing. But for us, for the audience, we take 2 to 3 drops just to create this weird feeling of superiority mixed with total helplessness. It brilliantly points out our own complicity. We consume tragedy for entertainment, watching these characters walk blindly into traps, totally addicted to the dramatic irony that's poisoning their lives.
Finally, Section 5. The terror of stability.
So, why is a happy ending so terrifying? Well, it results in chronic stability anxiety. It's a paradoxical disorder where a patient's nervous system has completely adapted to chaos and trauma. Because Elias is so used to disaster, when things finally stabilize with Lena in the current timeline, he experiences acute distress. Peace literally registers as danger to him. He's sitting at dinner, white-knuckling it, just waiting for the metaphorical other shoe to drop. He's completely unable to enjoy the present because his brain is screaming that happiness is just a setup for a much worse punchline.
Which transitions perfectly into domesticity disorder, an allergic reaction to normalcy. The mix of hilarity and heartbreak here is just profound. Get this, at one point, Elias has a massive identity crisis simply because Lena suggests getting him a navy blue towel for her bathroom. To him, a designated towel means permanence. It means routine and being known in a daily context. For a timeline-jumping guy who is so used to outrunning death, simply claiming a side of the bed feels like a terrifying surrender.
But there is a cure. The ultimate remedy. The tincture of present moment. The instructions? 0 thoughts about the past or the future. The active ingredient is literally just staying. It is the only cure that actually works against all these narrative diseases. It's the terrifying, beautiful choice to simply stay in the present moment, to choose this exact timeline and this exact person, even knowing that, yeah, it might end badly.
To wrap up our clinical briefing today, I want you to ask yourself, if you had access to infinite multiverses, could you survive the terrifying vulnerability of choosing just one ordinary, fragile timeline? It really forces us to look hard at our own relationship with stability and escapism. Because sometimes, the bravest act isn't jumping across realities, it's having the courage to stay right where you are,